Obviously, it is not desirable to be a sex addict. Nobody wants it. No one wants a title like that, because when someone thinks about a sex addict, they think about a child molester, a pedophile, or anything along those lines. In simple fact is that majority of the time it is true. If you ask a lot of rapists that are in prison right now, how did your addiction start? In most cases, not all of the time, with the exception to the rule, they'll tell you, I started watching pornography, and then I was masturbating, and then the pornography got harder and harder and harder and harder and harder. Before I know it, I was a rapist. If you ask most men that harass women at work or harass their clients or anything along those lines, how it all started usually starts the same, with pornography and masturbation. Everything in life has a root. It does not just become a tree. Why I say that is because, like I use the same example again, how does someone become a bank robber? They do not just wake up one morning and they were a bank robber. They started when they were young with shoplifting, and then they were stealing pens at school, and then they were, robbing old women, and then they were hijacking cars, and then they were robbing houses, and before you know it, he was robbing banks. So how do you sort it out? By the root. Now, once someone is a sex addict, it's very difficult to get out of it. It's the hardest thing ever. From experience, I know what I'm talking about. When I was watching pornography and masturbating, it was an everyday thing. And the day I wanted to come out of it, till today, after 2 years in recovery, I must be honest with you when I say I still struggle. But however, through work in the SAA program, I've managed to find sobriety. Now, let's start with the basic things. Our addiction. All we knew was that we couldn't control our sexual behavior. For us, sex was a consuming way of life. I couldn't walk into, till today, I tried to refrain from going to malls, any place where I'm exposed to a lot of women dressed naked, dressed like prostitutes with short skirts and tight clothes and all these things. I still don't watch television and movies and listen to all this nonsense, MTV bass trays, all these things that contaminate my mind with wrong information, with sick thoughts, and help make me feel like acting out. You see, once someone finds recovery, they have to take upon themselves the burden of change, the burden of doing things differently, the burden of I will never think the same, I'll never act the same, and I'll have to change my ideology. Even if every guy in the world fantasizes and, as guys we have conversation, oh, look at that woman, look how pretty she is. Look at her, look how nice her legs are. And as part of the gang, you want to join in on the conversation, oh yeah, because you don't want your friends to think that you're strange or different or anything like that. Well, one thing I've learned about my addiction is that I had to man up. I cannot engage in such conversations. I cannot be doing such things. And I need to be man enough to do the right thing. And that way, my sex addiction will not consume me. I have to make sure that I'm not chatting to girls on WhatsApp. I had to delete my Facebook account. I had to not read magazines anymore. Even the newspapers, most of it is garbage. I mean, they put a nice girl there, naked and things like that, and only at the back they'll put the business section or politics or anything like that. So I had to take upon myself, if there's any knowledge that I have to know, God will make sure that I know it. I don't need to read newspapers or go to the internet or anything like that. If it's not business related, I don't have to be on the internet. If I'm not watching a lecture or a sermon or anything like that, I don't have to be on YouTube. Although the details of our stories were different, our problem was the same. We are addicted to sexual behaviors that we return to over and over and over despite the consequences. People get fired, people lose their wives. You have no idea how many people have lost their wives to this addiction. How most women don't even trust their wives anymore. Most wives don't trust their husbands anymore because of this. A lot of people even abuse their kids, their brothers, their sisters, and all that stuff because of this. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a serious thing. A lot of drug addicts that you speak to, men and women, they will tell you that at one point or another in their life, they were molested or sexually abused or anything like that. And that was the thing that started the whole show. So we have to understand that this has bad consequences to even our victims. Now, I just thank God that God helped me to stop this on time before any of that stuff started in my life. Because I know a lot of men that their addiction from porn and masturbation, it went all the way to where they were abusing people. Sex addiction is a disease affecting the mind, body, and spirit. I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was saying, on Yom Kippur, when I went to go daven, Rosh Hashanah. And as I was davening and praying and speaking to God, all of a sudden from nowhere, a woman came into my mind, a woman that I haven't seen in months. Just the image of her came into my mind from nowhere. And it happens all the time when I try to pray. All of a sudden, I'll think of a woman, or in the middle of my sleep, and I turn on my bed, all of a sudden, I'll picture a woman. And the way this disease affects the mind so much that I can still sometimes remember the pornography that I watched 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when I was still a kid, like I watched it yesterday, even after 2 years of not watching that garbage. After 2 years of not masturbating, the urges and the cravings are still there to show how serious it is. Because once you put yourself into that prison, it is a life prison that you will take literally your whole life to get yourself out of it. My suggestion is cut it now before the sentence is longer. It is progressive, with the behavior and its consequences usually becoming more and more severe over time. And stop with that nonsense that, well, I'm a single guy and I can't stand being celibate. The day I get a girlfriend, I'll stop. You have no idea how many guys that I know that are married that said to themselves, the day that I find a wife, I'll stop. But even in their marriage, the addiction followed them. And while they're still married to the most beautiful woman, they're still acting out. Single, married, not in a relationship, whatever. You still are obligated to do the right thing. So being single is no excuse to go visit prostitutes or the strip club or go to a masseuse parlor or any of that stuff. Do what's right for the sake of your own life. We experience it's a compulsion, which is an urge that is stronger than our will to resist, as an obsession, which is a mental preoccupation with sexual behavior. That's when your mind is so consumed every day, even at work, even when you try to study. The only thing that you can think about is sex. You cannot even concentrate on what you're doing in your everyday life, because all you think about is sex or looking at the woman or anything. That is the most destructive and miserable way to live. As a human being, you want to be a healthy man who can think, who can focus, who can concentrate, who can be present when you're at a meeting at work. Be present when you're with your family. Be present when you're with your friends. In SAA, we have come to call our addictive behavior acting out. Acting out altered our feelings and our conscience. The more you act out, the more your conscience dies. In the first few times, you'll realize and you'll think, well, what I'm doing is wrong. But the more time goes on, the more your conscience dies. The more you don't see anything wrong in what you're doing. The more it's dead and your heart is dead, and you end up harming people and seeing nothing wrong with what you're doing. Why? Because the conscience is dead. And your conscience is the most important thing that you should ever have in your life, because your conscience is the only thing that can tell you what you're doing is right or wrong. And the more a person ignores his conscience, the more he loses his compass in life, and the more he'll go off the right direction, and the more he'll head for destruction and perish. The obsession and the rituals that led up to the sex act itself were a part of the high. So, we call this the bubble. You prepare everything, the porn movie, you make sure everybody's not there, you switch off the light. It's setting that stage. That's what it means when it talks about the ritual and the acting out and wiping yourself and washing your hands and all these things. That's the ritual that they talk about that leads to the high, and finding just the right porn movie, just the correct scene, just the right woman, the correct look, and all these things. And what usually happens, especially to single guys who do this, is that this whole thing sets up a picture perfect woman that doesn't really exist in real life. The woman that we saw in porn movies, in the music videos, in the newspapers, you need to understand one thing, that such a woman does not exist. A woman is a human being. She has feelings, she has emotions. Sometimes she wakes up, sometimes her breath smells, sometimes she didn't take a shower, sometimes she has no makeup on, sometimes she doesn't feel like having sex. And if you program your mind into thinking that what you see on television, in the music, in the movies, in the porn movie, that's how a woman is, one day you'll get into a relationship, you'll find yourself in great disappointment when those expectations that are impossible to fulfill will not be fulfilled. We sought this addictive highs repeatedly and preferring it to many other activities, feeling our compulsion more strongly than our basic needs to eat, drink, sleep, or be safe. So basically this will take on even your eating, your sleeping, your waking. You'll end up being late to work. You will not pitch up for certain events. Every place where you need to be and what you're supposed to be doing as a healthy human being, you will not be able to do that. You won't enjoy your holidays. You want to enjoy your money because this will drain your money. The prostitutes, the strip clubs, the downloading of pornography, it will consume your whole wealth and bring you to poverty. It will land you divorced, or maybe even worse, never getting married at all. And that's the worst thing that could ever happen to a man, to die a lonely man. What a sad life to have. These compulsive desires were irresistible, persistent, insatiable, meaning the cravings are so deep within a person that they consume and overpower him to the point that he cannot even stop them. They went off like alarms in our heads and made it difficult to focus on anything else, just like what I said. When we wanted to act out, the urge didn't go away. Nor did we feel satisfied when we got our fix. The more a person watches pornography and acts out, the more he wants to act out, the more he wants to act out, the more he wants. This desire never gets fulfilled. The more you do it, the more it wants more. The point is that you have to stop. The only way for you to stop desiring it is that you have to stop acting out. There is no two-way streams about that. My suggestion is, get yourself to a meeting. Work the steps. Find a sponsor. Get involved. Do service work and pray to God every day that He gets you out of this. Thank you.